Unlike other videos, I'm going to turn the format slightly on its head by showing you what you're going to achieve before I show you how to achieve it. So you go straight to the action. The first thing is cleaning the pipe. If you've got a bit of tarnished pipe like some of this, which I've just taken out of my shed, it really is no good. Even with self-cleaning fluxes, that won't polish up to be a perfect job. So we get something like a little bit of emery, a little bit of abrasive. You can even use those Scotch Brite pads from the kitchen, anything like that, and just take the rubbish off the pipe and make sure that it's nice and shiny. The same goes for the inside of the fittings. You can see this is an old fitting here. It's been lying around a while. Self-cleaning flux won't clean that up. What you need to do is you need to get something like a wire brush or something like a bit of emery and get it inside that fitting and just polish up. It really is important that you make it clean. Now at some point you're going to want to cut some pipe. Now you can do this with the junior hacksaw, but it doesn't give you a very square edge. The best way to cut copper is with a pipe slice. This one's sold by Monument Tools. It's very easy to put on the pipe and just spin it round and cut it. And what it gives you is a nice, clean, square edge pipe. Now you can get these in different sizes. This one's 15mm or the old 1/2 inch if you like, and you can also get them in larger sizes, or you can get one pipe slice or one pipe cutter rather, which will do all sizes, but you have to fiddle about and adjust it. These are my favourites. Now before I go any further, I've spoken about cutting pipe with pipe slices and the like. What they do is they slightly bevel over the end of the pipe. Now in a purist school of plumbing, what people say is you've got to get rid of that slight burr on the inside of the pipe because it creates turbulence, resistance, and they reckon it can cause leaks. Personally, I've never seen any plumber remove the burrs. Most of them just slice it, put it in. But if you want to remove the burrs, there are plenty of things around to do it with. What I use is a bolt, just a simple 6-inch bolt, and I just put it around the inside and just take away that slight burring over that's on the inside. But as I say, really speaking, when that goes in, it forms, to my mind, as smooth a transition between the pipe and the joint as you can get. Right, so that's the pipe cleaned up, that's the pipe cut, ready to go. The next thing we need is flux. And fluxing is very important. This is a self-cleaning flux. There are lots on the market. This is a non-acidic, water-soluble one by Laco, which is pretty good, but everybody finds a flux that they prefer. A lot of people use Everflux. It's a little bit acidic and it stings if you get it on your fingers, so be careful. You can wear gloves, that makes it a lot easier. Important not to put too much flux on. All you want is enough to cover the pipe and stop the oxidization. Right, so the next thing we need is to solder. This is lead-free solder. That's the way to go nowadays. That's what everybody's using, and it's fairly expensive stuff, so we have to use it sparingly. Now people wonder how much solder you need to do a joint. The amount of solder you need is equivalent to the diameter of the pipe. So this is a 22mm or 3/4 inch pipe if you're in America, and then you just bend the solder around so that you've got 3/4 of an inch or 22mm of solder, and then you do another one, and then you do another one, so you get yourself a nice little zigzag of solder. If you've got a smaller diameter pipe, then you make smaller bends, but if you carry on like that, then every time you get to the end of the bend, you know you've used the right amount of solder. Now, There's no point feeding solder into a joint if it's not running and it doesn't look like it's feeding up into there. Don't just keep stuffing solder in, because you're just wasting your time. If it's not running right, there's a reason it's not running right, and we have to find out what that is. Go back to the basics. Now we get to the exciting part where we introduce the heat, and for that you need a blow lamp. This one is from Vulcan and it self-ignites. It's got a piezo spark in there, and the reason I like this one is that a lot of blow lamps, the piezo spark goes fairly quickly in them and then it's a nuisance to use them. With this one, when the piezo spark goes, you just insert a tiny cassette into there and that's a brand new piezo spark ready to go. You can also change the nozzles on it. It's just a nice, easy, automatic sequence to use. But any blow lamp would do. If you get a butane one, they're not so good in very cold weather. So if you're trying to repair frozen pipes and things like that, the butane ones don't work as well as the propane ones. So this is the kind of thing the professionals use all the time. Okay, now we're ready to apply the heat at long last. If you're working in situ, if you're working in existing plumbing, you must make sure all the water's got out of that pipe, because if there's a little trickle of water still running through the pipe, it won't allow the pipe to solder. So you must make sure that it's clean and strong. I'll turn the blow lamp down because it's a bit fierce. I don't need it that fierce. And what I'm going to do is just heat the joint. This isn't going to happen instantly, because you just need to get a bit of heat on the whole pipe work and the joint. Just make sure it starts to warm up. There's no point in introducing the solder until you're ready, because if you do, all you're doing is dipping the solder into the top of the flame and melting it and wasting the solder. So all you do is heat the pipe, try a little experimental dab on there. It's not ready yet. As soon as it's ready, you'll know it. Now it's ready. That's it. Up to that zigzag, that joint's done. Let's go over. Let's do the next one, which is here, which is a smaller one, 15mm. That's done. Now the bottom one. It's going to suck up with capillary action right into the bottom, and that's done. Okay? We don't need any more than that. That's sucked that solder straight up into that joint there, and it's made a perfect seal on it. If you put more in, all it'll do is run down the pipe. Now it's a good idea, that might be slightly hot, yeah, that is, but it's a good idea just to wipe around the joint with a dry rag. Some people use a wet rag, makes the joint go off, but I have heard that can crack the solder. So a little dry rag, do that. Once the joint's cooled down a bit, get a damp rag and just wash off any excess flux that is on the pipe. But as you can see, because I didn't use a huge amount of flux, it's not running down the pipe. You can see all three of those joints, if you have a look at them, they're all perfect, they're all sealed all the way around. That joint won't leak. That's soldering in a nutshell, and here's my top tips for getting it right every time so you don't get leaks. Make sure the pipe is clean. Use self-cleaning flux, but use it sparingly, and when you use it, don't introduce any contamination into the joint. Keep that lid on so you don't get any grit or anything like that. Make sure there are no hairs dropping off the end of the flux brush when you apply the flux. When you've done that, prepare your solder so you use the right amount by bending it. Apply your heat, not too fierce. Take a little bit of time, make sure the pipe's warmed up, then introduce the solder. Don't do that too soon. Let the solder run, check your joint visually, don't disturb the joint while it's cooling, and you can give it just a nice little wipe round. So that's it. Time for me to go, and thanks very much for watching. And if you want any more information on anything to do with building, go to my site, which is selfbuilder.net. We'd love to see you there, and we'd really love to have you back as a regular viewer. And before I lose you good people, I just want to give a little bit of publicity to a friend of mine who's invented something which I think is rather brilliant. He's a carpenter, but then nobody's perfect. But he was fed up with plumbers burning the backs of his kitchen units, so he came up with this idea. It's a heat-proof mat that existed already, but what he's done is put a little hole in it. It's the mat with the hole in, and what it does is just pops around the pipe like that. You can put that back against the unit, and then if he's soldering a joint onto there, there's no risk of burning the surrounding area. It's a great idea. It's called the OMAT. It comes from Monument, which is in the UK, but you can order that on the web or anywhere you like, and it's a great general purpose heat proof mat anyway.